I'm here on the Parliament of Victoria website, and you can see the new bills released and the bills this week or whatever. But past the Assembly, which will now go to Council, we can read the Public Health and Wellbeing Amendment, which is the Pandemic Management Bill 2021. When you open that up, it brings you to the Victorian legislation website, and you can see that the first reading was passed on the 26th of October, which is a Tuesday, and then just a couple of days later, the third reading was moved and passed, and it's now passed the lower house. So all it is requiring now is passing in the upper house. But I want you guys to actually know what this bill is about and what it means. So we're going to jump into the introduction. Just going to zoom in here for you guys so you can hopefully read better. So the Parliament of Victoria, Public Health and Wellbeing Amendment, Pandemic Management Bill 2021, Table of Provisions. Part 1, preliminary, is the purposes. So we're just going to jump down onto page 1 just to read the purposes of this bill. So the purposes of this act are: A, to amend the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008 in relation to the effective management of pandemics, and B, to amend the Public Health and Wellbeing Act in relation to fees for detention of persons in quarantine during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so these two sections here are what they actually want to change to the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008. So they want to reform this legislation that already exists in relation to the effective management of pandemics, and then they want to change the fees for detention of persons in quarantine during the COVID-19 pandemic, which at the moment it's a state of emergency, but we'll get to that later. And C, to amend the Infringements Act 2006 to broaden the scope of what constitutes special circumstances in that act and the Fines Reform Act 2014, and to make consequential amendments to those acts for the purposes of the concessional infringement scheme in the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008, and D, to make consequential amendments to other acts. So what that means is they have created the concessional infringement scheme in the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. That's what they're doing and changing. And then they want to broaden the scope of what constitutes special circumstances in the Infringements Act and the Fines Reforms Act, so that they can actually legally give you fines for breaching the concessional infringement scheme, which I believe is like all the fines that they have now for individuals if you breach the COVID rules, because now it's law. And D, that any other consequential amendments that need to be made to other acts to make this all happen and be regulated, basically. Let's just jump back out of that, because that's all the purposes that they have. That's the purpose of the bill. That's what it's there for. So when we jump back, we can go into the Explanatory Memorandum and open this up and actually see what that all means, basically, for us. What's happening. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to read what I think is important. So, the Explanatory Memorandum. The Public Health and Wellbeing Amendment Pandemic Management Bill 2021, the bill, will establish a contemporary, fit-for-purpose regulatory framework to enable the effective management of pandemics, including the current COVID-19 pandemic. The bill will introduce amendments to enable the protection of public health from the serious threat posed by pandemic diseases and diseases of pandemic potential. Most critically, the bill focuses on saving Victorian lives during pandemics and promoting and protecting the social, economic, and mental welfare of Victorians to the greatest extent possible during these confronting events. So the bill is a crucial next step in the evolution of Victoria's COVID-19 response. It provides the state with a contemporary blah 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 scheme, blah 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 blah. But the main thing that I want to get to is this. Victoria's current state of emergency and the suite of powers it supports to manage the pandemic and keep Victorians safe, i.e., the COVID-safe settings, all the sorts of rules and mask mandates, that everything that exists is because of this current state of emergency. That's what we're in at the moment, and it expires on the 15th of December 2021 and cannot be extended beyond this period. So the bill provides this framework to be used for the ongoing management of the COVID-19 pandemic and future pandemics, but that power is all right now given to Dan Andrews, because he's the one, once this gets passed, he gets the chance to declare a pandemic. So food for thought for yourselves. This is just the most important bits that I think are there. I want people to understand what this bill is, what it means. And, there's a whole bunch of stuff that it just doesn't make sense because it got passed through in a matter of a couple of days through the lower house, which means it's probably going to get through the upper house without much, actual opposition. But yeah, they did it at times that just didn't make sense to me. Like, they got it tabled in on Tuesday, and then now we're here now, Monday, and tomorrow is the Melbourne Cup weekend, like Cup Day. So, it's the timing and everything just seems off to me. But that's my personal opinion. I'm gonna be a conspiracy nut in my own time. But yeah, this is the legislation that's coming in and is passing, and nobody's really doing anything about it.